Our boy William Shakespeare comes fairly late to the sonnet game. He's a kind of second or third generation English sonneteer. This has already become a kind of very popular, fashionable lyric form. And actually, Shakespeare publishes his, or Shakespeare doesn't necessarily even publish these himself. These poems get published after the sonnet rage of the 1580s and 1590s is over. The sonnet form becomes the most important short poetic form in English, the most important lyric form. Initially, it's an Italian form invented by people like Dante and Petrarch and used to write love poetry. Idealizing Neoplatonic courtly love poetry about a gorgeous, unattainable object and who doesn't love the sonneteer back. That is a convention. Not loving the sonneteer back is a basic convention of the form, and a whole bunch of various conventional ways of complaining about that. Um, it enters English pretty early in what we call the English Renaissance, and then it goes on eventually after it falls out of fashion and comes back to become the key form. It stops for Shakespeare. It's still mostly a love form, and that's mostly, but not exclusively, how he uses it. After, I mean, somebody's like, well, hey, get a baby, get a baby, get a baby, which is, it's loosely in the love form. Um, he is already doing some things with conventions that have already gotten a little old, a little sharp, or moved into being cliches, and he's going to turn some of them around and think outside of what he was handed down. Later, when you get to Brit Lit 2 and the American Lit surveys, you'll see the sonnet eventually gets kind of broken from being just dedicated to love poetry and becomes an all-purpose form for English poetry, English language poetry. So you can write sonnets about politics because you're Percy Shelley and you're angry. Keats can write a poem about like whatever's on Keats's mind. Wordsworth can write a poem about sitting on London Bridge in the morning, the very early morning before the city wakes up. In the Harlem Renaissance, you can write sonnets against lynching. It's an all purpose form. For Shakespeare, it's not quite that yet. The rhyme scheme he's using is called the Shakespearean sonnet rhyme scheme. He did not invent it. He's simply the earliest popular, most famous early user of it. Other people invented it. He uses it. He has 154 of these, some of which are very successful and very famous, so it's named after him. The Italian form, the original sonnet form, basically is divided into two sections. The first 8 lines rhyme together in a complicated interlocking way, and the next 6 lines start a new set of rhymes that interlock in another way. And you never, ever end an actual Italian sonnet with a couplet. A rhymed couplet, bad taste, brother, bad taste. Too much, too on the nose. That means that those classical Italian sonnet forms and some of the early experiments in English naturally break up into eight. The poem has an 8 line section, and then we'll make a turn, a pivot. The Italian word for turn here is volta. It will switch around, so you can write um, 8 lines that are like a question and 6 lines that are an answer to that question. 8 lines of, oh my God, love is making me so miserable. And then 6 lines of like, but then again, it's great, whichever it is. Shakespeare, look for turns at the beginning of the 9th line, not because Shakespeare has a formal reason to put them there. It doesn't naturally break into 8 and 6 line chunks, but for a kind of formal nostalgia. The sonnet form is used to turning at line 9, and so often Shakespeare does. Look at how many times line 9 starts with but, although, but then, etc. The Shakespeare form is 3 quatrains, fairly simple A-B rhyme schemes. Switch out a set of rhymes every time. A-B, C-D, C-D, E-F, E-F, and then finally a rhyming couplet, G-G. This is flexible. You can use these 4 subsections in different ways. You can have the first 8 speak to the last 6. You can have the first 3 quatrains all build up into one 12-line thing, and then do your turn almost at the end. a kind of line 13 turn where the whole poem is going one way for 12 lines and then changes direction sharply, pivots la volta, the turn, in line 13. Watch for Shakespeare to do it. The other thing that we've learned from reading Chaucer is that the couplet form, a pair of rhymed lines, is ideal for jokes. You use the first line to set up the joke, use the rhyming line as a punchline. Da, 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 ba, ba, ba. Easy pair, total formal closure. So watch for the different ways Shakespeare structures. He's got these subcomponents so he can line up in different ways. Watch for how he uses them. Sometimes he will build all the way up and then turn hard. Sometimes he will build build each quatrain towards the next quatrain, and then but in line 9 he will change.